So here I have a comp that I've just created by saying new composition when I was opening the program. Now what I will do is I will import. So file, import, or command I. And onto the desktop here, I have something I found on the internet. It's just a gear on alpha. It's a gear on transparency. I will just drop this into my composition here. If I open the controls of the layer, so I'm taking those numbers which are blue, and when I'm hovering around the number, I can see a finger with left and right arrows. And that allows me to move the numbers by clicking and dragging. So now I have activated my alpha. This is my alpha on my screen. So on my composition, I have a few tools here that I can use. So a dot is zoom in and comma is zoom out. So these are little fast keys that are very useful. So here's my gear. I can see my anchor point is right in the middle of my composition. By default, this is what happens. I can take my anchor point tool and I can move this anchor point here to any of the sides. And when I decide to rotate, so I'm going to my rotation here, and with my numbers, I will click on the numbers and I'm rotating on the anchor point. Always you rotate or move position or zoom on the anchor point. I will undo this. Here you can see I'm rotating back and forth on the middle of my composition, which is exactly what I need to do. So to animate this, I have a few options. I can either select the watch of rotation and click on the watch. Now the watch is activated. I therefore have now a keyframe that appeared here on my timeline. The keyframe is a recording of the actual position. If I move in time, which means I go forward into my timeline, and I rotate my gear for a certain number of degrees, let's say a whole one turn, so that would be 1, 0, or I can simply click here and dial 1, and it will do one turn between the two keyframes. So now I have an animation. If I do the space bar, I now have a slow gear moving. And now I have these keyframes that tell me when I start and when I stop. I can move those keyframes in time. So now it's moving a little faster. And so I'm using my keyframes to animate. If you right-click or control-click a keyframe, you will access the keyframe tools, assistant keyframe, and I can ease this one in. I can do the same at the start here. I can place my keyframe a little further, and I can right-click it and go to assistant, and this time I will ease out. The reason is I'm easing out from static to full speed, and you can see my triangles are looking towards faster and slower. It's ease out to start and ease in to finish. Now when I look at this with my graph, so here is my graph, and I will click my graph on, and now I see, if I zoom in here with my zoom button, I have the graph of my movement. It's a constant acceleration to full speed to deceleration. If I want, I can take the arm of that graph and I can accelerate faster, have more of a constant speed. I'll do the same. I'll push this one further. And so now I have a acceleration, constant speed, just about constant speed, and deceleration. Now I will close my graph and I will play back. So it starts slowly, it moves, and it decelerates. So this is the basis of doing keyframe animation. So when I'm at full speed, you see the little blurriness on the edge of the gear tooth is being blurred now, and it's a much more natural movement, and it strobes less than when I don't place my motion blur on. So this is my master motion blur on, and this is my layer motion blur on. So you always have to control these things separately. So now I have a basic animation with keyframes. If I close the layer like I just did and I want to see my keyframes, all I have to do is press on the U key. So any animation you have there with keyframes, when you press on the U key, it will appear. So now I'm going to show you how I can animate this without using keyframes. So I'm going to select my keyframes and delete them. Now my rotation, as you see, the watch is now off because I've just deleted the keyframes. I could have done something different. I could have simply clicked on the watch here and it will delete the points anyways. So those are two ways out of your animation. Now what I want is a constant motion of this gear using an expression. So the expressions can be accessed by clicking the watch for the keyframes and pressing on the key Alt or Option at the same time. So when I press Alt and Option at the same time, the expression is now transform.rotation. And what I want to do here is write something in there that will make this move by an expression. And the expression I will use here is simply time multiplied by a number. So let's say I want the gear to move at a certain speed. I will try 400 and see what that does. And when I press in any gray area here, it accepts the expression and now it moves. The motion here is extremely fast. So that's the speed that I chose. Let's change this. I'll just go inside here. Now I get more like a smoother gear motion here that I can work from. So the exercise here, the reason why I used first an expression to move, it's because it's a constant move and I can do this way quicker than if I create keyframes. The other reason is because now I'm going to duplicate this layer and I'm going to have another gear running at the same time. So I'm going to move this one sideways and I'm going to duplicate this, Command D on my layer, and move my new layer. I see that my gears are playing one against the other. So this is not exactly what I want. What I will do here is I will open my expression for rotation. So I did U on the key, which opens my keyframe as an expression. I will write times multiplied by minus 100. So if I play that back, now I have two gears that I animated. So now what I'm going to do here is duplicate again this layer and try again to create a third gear. So Command D on this one, and I will move it sideways and down and see if it works together with the other gear, and just play them back. And now again, I see that my third gear is working opposite. So I'm going to have to go in here again, U, to open the expression. Once I have my expression, I will click on the expression and simply remove the minus.